everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another true crime video. Today we are picking up with the Tyler Smith case and I'm going to give you a quick summary of what we've covered so far, but if you have not seen part 1 yet, you should do that first, and as always it will be linked in the description box. Tyler Smith was a 23-year-old man in Galesburg, Illinois for an Army National Guard drill weekend, and he'd been out in downtown Galesburg. He was last seen leaving a bar and his body was found the next morning in a concrete drainage ditch about 2 miles away from where he was last seen. The official cause of death was drowning, and authorities believed that Tyler, who had been drinking quite a bit, somehow ended up knocking himself out, falling face down in 2 inches of water, and then proceeding to drown. Tyler's family and others have raised serious concerns, citing several unanswered questions and suspicious details. They saw that the autopsy conducted was only 30 minutes long, and even though Tyler's hands were bagged, DNA swabs were never taken, nor were any x-rays taken, even though Tyler's family was told they would be. The investigation proceeded as if it was an accidental death right from the start, even though police would have no way of knowing that, and they missed crucial evidence that may have helped them create a timeline and show how Tyler ended up where he did and what happened to him. Now, we talked about a lot in the first video, and we have more to discuss, but before we do, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Helix Sleep. This video is sponsored by Helix Sleep, and Helix is running an awesome sale right now, so it's the perfect time to upgrade your mattress. All you have to do is visit helixsleep.com/Harlowe for more information, and I've been sleeping on my Helix Midnight Luxe mattress for almost 5 years now. It's just as good today as the day I first laid my tired, aching body on it. I've always struggled with sleep. I can't turn my brain off at night, and it was always made even worse by the fact that I could never find a comfortable position to fall asleep in. I would toss and turn all night, and so I was never actually falling into a deep sleep, and I always woke up feeling exhausted and sore, like I ran a marathon at night, and I just came to accept that this was my life. But then I got my Helix Sleep mattress, and when I sleep on my Helix mattress, it's a whole new world, and I know it's my Helix mattress giving me better sleep because whenever I sleep at a hotel or somewhere else for the night, I still get terrible sleep. So home and Helix is truly where the heart is and where restful sleep can be found. Helix Sleep makes premium mattresses and bedding that are customized to fit your needs and conveniently shipped right to your door. The Helix lineup features 20 unique mattresses, including their award-winning Luxe and Ultra Premium Elite collections, the Helix Plus mattress designed for big and tall sleepers, and the Helix Kids mattress designed for growing bodies and endorsed by child sleep and medical experts. Now, this might feel overwhelming because you don't really know where to start. You don't know which mattress is right for you. They have so many with all these different features and benefits, but don't worry about that. Everyone's different. Helix knows that, so they created a sleep quiz that matches your unique body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Based on your preferred sleeping position and how firm or soft you like your mattress, the quiz is going to suggest the perfect mattress for you out of the Helix lineup. And if you sleep with a partner, you can both take the quiz together and get a mattress that works for you both. Because I'm a side sleeper who likes a firmer feel in a mattress, I was paired with the Midnight Luxe, and not only do I fall asleep faster, but I wake up at least 90% less than I used to throughout the night, and I do not get up in the morning feeling like I was run over by a train in my sleep. I'm not sore, my lower back doesn't hurt, and everyone in my house sleeps on a Helix mattress. I cannot say enough good things about the Helix Kid mattress, which Bella absolutely loves, and I love because it grows with her. The mattress is a flippable design with a firmer side for 3 to 7-year-olds and a softer side for 8 to 12-year-olds. So I don't have to buy a new mattress as she gets older and her mattress needs evolve. Best of all, Helix, unlike other brands, they don't use fiberglass as a flame retardant in their mattresses. Helix mattresses are completely free of harmful fiberglass materials. In fact, they own their own manufacturing facility, which is entirely free from products containing fiberglass, so you can rest easy. Helix will deliver your new mattress right to your door with free shipping in the US. The mattress comes all rolled up in a box, and it's a breeze to set up yourself. And if it makes you nervous nervous to buy something you haven't had a chance to try yourself. I get that, but Helix actually offers a 100-night sleep trial, so you have more than 3 months to try your new mattress out in your home risk-free. Helix mattresses even have a 10-year warranty, and they offer financing options and flexible payment plans, so a great night's sleep is never out of reach. I love my Helix. I know you will too, so if you're looking for a new bed and some great sleep, Helix Sleep's President's Day sale is running now for a limited time, and they're offering my viewers an exclusive discount this month, 27% off your mattress purchase, which is a great deal. Once again, all you have to do is go to helixsleep.com/Harlowe to get 27% off your new mattress. You can also click the link in the description box below. Thank you so much to Helix for sponsoring today's video. And now let's dive in. When we left off last time, we had discussed how Tyler's parents had seen from his banking information that he'd made a $100 withdrawal from a Wells Fargo ATM located behind a bar on South Cherry Street called Monkey Business. Now, Tyler's mother, Sandra, informed the lead investigator on this case, Detective Olinger, about this withdrawal, and he requested the ATM camera footage from Wells Fargo. Detective Olinger later informed Sandra and Tyler's father, Keith, that their son was not seen on this footage, which obviously was impossible because the bank had a record of him making the withdrawal from this specific ATM location. Sandra and Keith obviously pushed this point with law enforcement, and they were finally invited to come in and sit down with Sergeant Van Aker of the Galesburg Police Department. And we heard a lot from Van Aker in part 1 of Tyler's case. I don't like him. I was going to say we don't like him. I don't know how you guys feel about him because we haven't released part 1 yet, so I haven't gotten your feedback. I don't like this dude, okay? I don't like him, not as a person, because I don't know him as a person, as a cop in his position, I don't like him. So Van Aker brings Sandra and Keith in, and he's like, listen, guys, Tyler's not on this footage. I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what else I can do right now. I'm going to show you myself that he wasn't on this footage. So he brings them in his office. He pops the disc, with the ATM footage into his computer. He hits play. And lo and behold, at around 11 minutes, Tyler pops up on the ATM footage along with the 2 friends that he was with that night, Evan and Robbie. Now, Detective Olinger insisted he had watched that entire video from start to finish twice, and he hadn't seen Tyler on it. But when Tyler's parents are sitting in the room and looking at the screen with their own eyes, there he was, there Tyler was. So they were suspicious of this, as any of us would be, right? I think we can agree with that. We'd be a little suspicious if the cops were like, hey, we looked at this footage, your son's not on it, let me show you myself. And then all of a sudden, bloop, 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 Tyler walks on the screen. Now, at the very least, it shows incredibly poor police work. Worst case scenario, it looks like maybe they were trying to hide something. The police report tries to give an explanation for why this happened, stating, quote, Detective Olinger again advised that he had watched both videos in their entirety twice and never observed anything on the video. Detective Olinger explained that when he first tried to view the video, he was having problems opening the files on the disk, and he got assistance from Cameron LeMaster, the department's IT tech, who was able to assist with opening the files. Detective Olinger advised that he then played the video using VLC Media Player on his computer. Detective Olinger stated that the counter on the video was running and that the cursor was moving the entire time he was viewing the video. Detective Olinger further advised that he would never have requested additional assistance in video footage from Wells Fargo if he truly did not believe the video footage he had obtained did not show Tyler at the ATM. On Tuesday, 11/13/2018, this officer had Detective McLaughlin attempt to play the ATM video on his computer. Detective McLaughlin found that if utilized VLC playback, the video appeared to run but no image of anyone came on the screen. This officer then viewed the video on Detective McLaughlin's computer with VLC playback and also confirmed that the video appeared to be playing, but I was not able to locate anyone at the ATM. Detective McLaughlin then loaded the video into Windows Media Classic, and we were able to watch the video properly, end quote. Basically, they're saying that using VLC VLC media player made it look like the video was playing, like the time was counting down, but it actually wasn't. And I looked this up, and there are a few reasons why this happened. It could have been a codec incompatibility. Some surveillance video cameras use proprietary or uncommon compression formats that VLC media player may not fully support. VLC might recognize that a video file is playing, hence the moving cursor and timer, but it would fail to decode the actual image. Windows Media Classic, which has a broader codec compatibility, was clearly able to decode or display the video properly. But why is this still maybe a little bit of a red flag for me? Well, first of all, this is a common technical issue and should have been caught immediately by investigators, especially if Olinger enlisted the help of the police department's IT guy, who, you think would know that, right? And secondly, if Olinger assumed the video was normal based only on the VLC player's faulty playback, it suggests carelessness in the police review process. This issue with the ATM video could have also happened if the video was intentionally altered or tampered with. So, for instance, a video file can be edited, compressed, or manipulated to remove keyframes while keeping the timestamp and metadata intact. And VLC would still recognize that the video existed, but the visual data could be missing or replaced with blank frames, which would make it play weirdly on VLC. More advanced media players like Windows Media Classic might detect and reconstruct missing frames, revealing what was hidden. If this was a codec issue, then what we're dealing with is simple police incompetence and honestly laziness rather than a cover-up. But if the video was intentionally altered, which would cause issues with playback and VLC, this is another story entirely. And my question would be, has this police department or this specific detective, Detective Olinger, never at any time before this attempted to play surveillance video from an ATM on his computer, right? Because you would think, since this is a common issue and we have proof that Tyler was at the ATM, someone at the police station, maybe the IT guy, would have been like, hey, VLC player kind of sucks. Why are you still using that, Olinger? Let's try Windows Media Player. Classic. It's way better. So is it laziness and incompetence? Or was there something intentional happening and the video was altered? Or, something happened where the police didn't want to admit to Tyler's family that they saw him on the ATM video. I now want to return to the audio we heard clips from throughout the first video because we're not done talking about that audacity yet. The first clip I want to play you is Sergeant Van Aker acknowledging that Detective Olinger screwed up, but also he's kind of saying, yeah, we messed up, man, big time, but what do you want me to do about it now? What's done is done.
I can, without a doubt, explain how it happened. Am I happy about it? No. Should have it happened? No. Did it happen? Yes. Can't control it.
Who suffered from it? Who suffered from it?
Well, I don't.
I feel like
you're saying you got.
I feel like
if you suffered from it, I apologize for that, but I can't fix a guy's mistake. I can't help it that he put the video in and he played it on the wrong media player, and it looks like the cursor's moving and the counter's going and he's watching it. It's not like I didn't sit there and walk by his desk and not see him viewing that video. He watched it. I know he watched it. I can't help the fact that it's a glitch. The wrong media player played that video and it seemed like it was going. Now, granted, in the grand scheme of things, what did I tell him? Hey, if you're watching a video and it's supposed to be somebody on it and you watch the whole thing and nobody's on it, how about instead of just saying there's nobody on it and you watch it again and there's nobody on it, how about after that we pass it off to somebody else and say, hey, can you put this in your computer and see if there's something wrong with mine?
Now, this is the one and only time I'm going to agree with Sergeant Van Aker because, yeah, as I just said, if you have evidence from Tyler's bank that he withdrew $100 from that specific ATM at that specific time, it might dawn on you that something is wrong, either with the footage or you got sent the wrong footage and you have to do more to figure out why the math isn't mathing. I don't like that Van Aker is minimizing the situation and trying to act like it's a glitch, a mistake. This guy made a mistake. It's no biggie. It's just the investigation into your son's death. What do you want me to do about this? And also what I don't like is the beginning of this clip when he's like, it happened. Am I happy about it? No. Do I like that it happened? No. What else did he say? Should it have happened? No, but it did. When I feel like when people talk like that, it's because they don't really have anything of substance to say. And then he says something like, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't fix this guy's mistake. The point of the matter is this is a sergeant. So what is a sergeant's rank in a police department? A sergeant is going to act as the middleman between upper management and, like the other police officers, detectives, things like that. So he is in a position of authority for the detectives, for the other police officers. According to the internet, sergeants frequently assume roles like professional standards investigator to ensure that personnel and equipment are maintained to department standards. It says, since they act as liaisons between upper management and subordinates, the role of police sergeant requires strong interpersonal leadership ability. As a sergeant, Van Aker, you were supposed to be in the role where you're making sure that your police officers are maintaining the standards of your police department. Are the standards of your police department to do a half-assed investigation? Are the standards of your police department to view a video on a computer using a specific media player and then not try a different computer or a different media player when you're not seeing on that footage what you know should be there? So, yes, you are sort of accountable for this. It wasn't your mistake. It was somebody else's mistake, but now you have to make good on this mistake. And you do that through things like, hey, maybe Olinger needs to be reprimanded. Maybe Olinger needs to go back for some better training. And these are the things that Van Aker could be telling Tyler's parents to reassure them that this was a mistake and it's a bad one, right? Don't minimize it. It was a bad one. And I know it sucks. And I'm sorry that it further added to the hurt that you were already experiencing, but we're going to make this right. But he didn't do that, okay? And Van Aker continues on with this whole thread of, I guess, minimizing what happened with Tyler. And he lets Tyler's parents know that their only son's death was going to be a great learning experience.
It's a learning experience, okay? We all learn from things that happen in an investigation. We continually learn. We're continually learning how to do new things all the time. Technology changes in a blink of an eye.
So while you learning, and we're feel like we're not getting anything back, and you're learning from our mistakes, and then when we come to you, you treat us like, what do you think? What the fuck you want me to do?
Well, I'm asking you a question. What more do you want from me out of this investigation?
For one thing, to talk to us like you're talking to us now. I had to talk to you twice on the phone. On the phone, you even got loud.
Because I get frustrated with having the same questions asked.
Well, as soon as we called the chief and complained, the chief must have came to you and said something, and as soon as you called us, you started screaming at us. You were very loud and very rude, and Keith even had to say, excuse me, sir, you seem like you're angry. That was the very beginning of our conversation.
Okay.
And you're taking it out on us, and we're the victims in this, whether you see it that way or not. You're not the victim, I'm the victim. I'm the victim in this. My son is the one that died.
And then you say, well, you get tired of asking the same old question over. We don't even get. We're grieved. I lost my son, so I'm just asking. Your job is to be there for me. So I'm just asking you to be there for me. But you're getting frustrated with me asking you questions. But I'm asking questions over and over because I'm not getting any answers. And if you would just sit and talk to me like you're talking to me now,
I can't give you answers I don't have.
So you would rather just tell me shut the fuck up?
I didn't tell you.
You didn't tell me shut the fuck up. You didn't do that. You didn't do that. You just told me what the fuck you want me to do. I'm sorry. I made a mistake.
And maybe you put words in my mouth.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm just saying you.
Okay, I think we're going to get past this and try to get back to work.
It's not a training module. You're not in the police academy learning how to be police officers. This is someone's life. These parents do not want to sit in front of you and hear that the investigation really taught you a lot. And according to these clips, it seems that Van Aker has gotten mouthy with Sandra and Keith before, and now he's acting like a petulant child, claiming that words were being put in his mouth. Now we're going to stay on the ATM thread for a second, because when Tyler was found, he had I think it was $72 of cash in his pocket, and this obviously leads to a few questions. If Tyler used his debit card at bars where he bought drinks, what did he need to take $100 out of the ATM for? Sandra also points out that on the ATM video, it's clear that Tyler already had money in his wallet when he took the money out of the ATM. So if he already had an undetermined amount of cash, and if he took $100 more out of the ATM, and if he used his debit card to buy drinks at the bars he went to, where did that cash go? And why would he have needed to withdraw money from the ATM if he already had cash in his wallet? Now, Sandra questions this in her meeting with Sergeant Van Aker, and she wants to know if Evan or Robbie, who were both present when Tyler made the ATM withdrawal, and who were both seen at some point on the Wells Fargo ATM surveillance, if they had any idea why Tyler needed to take money out. And this is a valid question, right? These are the last people who are with him. They're with him when he's taking money out of the ATM. Usually if you're with your friends and you're like, oh, hey, I got to hit up an ATM. I need to take money out for blah, blah, blah. You would say why you needed to, right?
And then on the ATM video, and I already know what your answer is going to be because every time I bring something up, it's what's that going to do for us? But we did notice, I don't know if you noticed this as well, he did have cash in his clip. So we were wondering, it's suspicious to me that he's taking money out of an ATM and he already has cash and then he goes into a bar and uses his debit card.
I cannot answer.
I know, but these are the clues as an investigator. To me, I feel like you should have to go and get and write a timeline and go, okay, he's this, and this. Is this suspicious at all?
Him removing cash from an ATM is not suspicious whatsoever.
Were you there for the interviews?
On which ones?
For Robbie and Evan.
Yes.
Were you there? Did you ask them why Tyler said he needed to go to the ATM?
They didn't. Evan didn't even remember going to the ATM.
Did Robbie?
And Robbie's like, I have no idea why he wanted to go to the ATM. They didn't. Why does it? I'm going to ask him why Tyler wants to go use the ATM.
I just wondered if he said, hey, I got to go get some more cash. Hey, I got to go here. Hey, I got to.
Not that they can.
Okay. That's all I want to know.
Here's the thing that bothers me about that clip, besides Sergeant Van Aker's dismissive and arrogant bedside manner. First, he says there's nothing suspicious about taking money out of an ATM, which at face value is obviously true, but combined with other factors, some of which Sandra mentioned, it could be suspicious. Obviously, Tyler didn't need cash for drinks, which is what they were doing that night, because he was using his debit card and he already had some cash on him. So he clearly needed more cash than what he currently had. The question would then be, why? And what can you buy with cash that you can't buy with a debit card? If I was a detective on this case, my first thought would be drugs. Now, we know that Tyler did have alcohol in his system when he died, but the toxicology report showed that there were no other drugs present in his system. When Evan first talked to the police over the phone, he told them that earlier in the night, Tyler had shown him 2 pills he was keeping in something they called an SNUS case, and I didn't know what an SNUS case was, so I looked it up and I found out that it's basically like moist, finely ground smokeless tobacco. It's chewing tobacco. And this chewing tobacco stuff usually comes in like a round tin or round cases. So that's what an SNUS case would be, something you'd store your chewing tobacco in. And apparently Tyler had one of these cases and there were 2 pills inside. And he allegedly, according to Evan, said that these pills were antidepressants that he'd bought on the street. Now, the Galesburg Police Department did recover both of these pills because they were on Tyler, and they determined that they were like aspirin or something. They weren't antidepressants. Tyler wasn't on antidepressants. Once again, nothing like that was found in his system. Now, the whole thing would lead me to wonder if Tyler had promised to give cash to someone to buy something. Maybe he had an appointment to meet up with someone and give them this money in exchange for something. But what Sandra is trying to say is that it was a very short window of time between when Tyler took the money out of the ATM and when his Apple Health data showed he stopped moving, presumably when whatever happened to him happened. So where did he spend that money in that short window of time? And if he didn't spend it, where did it go? Was Tyler mugged and whoever mugged him grabbed the $100 out of his pocket, but they didn't want to stick around searching through the rest of his pockets in fear of being seen, so they never found his money clip? You know, sometimes when you take money out of an ATM, maybe you're a little drunk, you just stick it in your pocket, you don't put it in your purse or your wallet or the place where you keep the rest of your money. Maybe that's what happened. These are valid questions, and Sergeant Van Aker is trying to make Sandra feel stupid for asking them, and that only makes him look stupid for not asking them. The other thing I find suspicious is that Van Acker says Evan and Robbie have no idea why Tyler went to the ATM. Evan was so drunk he didn't remember being there. And then Van Acker says, I'm going to ask them why Tyler wants to go to the ATM. I'm going to ask them why. So that makes me feel like Van Acker did not ask this question. So he actually doesn't know what Evan or Robbie would have said in response, right? Because she's like, well, were you present for the interview? Did you ask them why? And he's like, Evan was so drunk he doesn't even remember. And then he proceeds to say, like, and I'm going to ask them why he went to the ATM, just based on the way that conversation was structured. Because he didn't say, yeah, I asked them, or yeah, I asked them and they don't remember. He was like, Evan was so drunk he didn't remember being there, and I'm going to ask them why Tyler went to the ATM. I don't think he actually did ask, okay? That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong. I know that Evan and Robbie's police interviews at the police station were recorded, but were they asked why Tyler went to the ATM before those interviews or during those interviews? I don't know. Van Acker continues on in his condescending manner as he talks about how these young men were so drunk they don't even remember where they were or what they were doing that night.
The ball has been dropped.
What?
Checking the videos, going and investigating anything, because from day one it's been an accident.
Talk to you. If I go talk to the bartender, what's the bartender going to tell me?
She's going to say, okay, they were in here at this time. It's going to help them with a timeline. You don't even have a timeline.
What do you mean we don't have a timeline? A timeline of what?
Of the events that night, how he,
They don't even remember what bar they went to first or second or third. They went from bar to bar to bar to bar.
I thought Robbie remembered.
No, they don't. They're like, they didn't even remember. None of them even said they went to bar 65. We had no idea. Did you even know they were in bar 65?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, well.
The bartender emailed me because we have a flyer out for information.
And they emailed you that? Yeah,
yes, they were there from 9 to 9:30.
9 to 9:30. Mm-hmm. So that's what the bartender.
I'm also hearing that there was a fight at Monkey Business and Tyler was possibly in a fight there.
Well, then you know what? If you hear that, then I need to know who's saying that to you.
So Sandra asked if the cops had spoken to any of the bartenders that night. And Van Acker is like, well, what's that going to tell me? Dude, would you know if you didn't talk to them? Would you know what it would tell you if you didn't talk to them? And Sandra puts him in his place because he's like, we didn't even know they were at bar 165, did you? And she's like, yeah, I did. Do you know how? Because I went to these places. I went to these establishments. I talked to people there. I did investigative work. And when she tells him about all of this other stuff, he doesn't know what to say. He's just like, oh, well, you need to tell me these things when you hear them. First of all, you would have heard this stuff if you did your job or if your detectives did your job. You'd know this stuff firsthand. Second of all, what the hell do you think is happening now? The parents of this young man are sitting in front of you and they're telling you what they know based on investigations that they had to conduct themselves. A fight outside of Monkey Bar that Tyler might have been involved in could have been good information to know. Maybe he pissed someone off. And maybe when Tyler was separated from his friends, that person followed Tyler and, hit him or beat him up, threw him into the drainage ditch. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying you wouldn't know because you didn't do your job. There's also a weird issue with Tyler's Facebook account. And like I said, it's just another strange element to this case. So the day after Tyler was found, someone had contacted Facebook and advised them of Tyler's death, which then locked his Facebook account. Neither of Tyler's parents had any idea who this person could have been, and they asked the police if they could look into it and figure it out. At the very least, could they get Tyler's Facebook unlocked so that they would be able to see, get in and see maybe who he was communicating with on that app through Messenger. A lot of people use Facebook Messenger to talk back and forth, so there may have been some answers in there.
As far as his Facebook, you said you were still waiting to hear back from Facebook.
Facebook's they're not going to provide us information in reference to who.
I don't need to know who did it. I just need it sent back to
we've contacted them. They've got no response in reference to their even answering us.
Okay. Because the Facebook got shut down by we don't know who the very next day.
And we just thought that was kind of suspicious for someone to go in and shut his. And we checked with his,
you would think it's suspicious. You got to put yourself in our shoes, right? I know you're the detective and you got to be like emotion out, empathy out, but you got to put yourself sometimes in someone's shoes and look outside the box. As an investigator, you have to investigate. I don't feel like Todd Olinger investigated. I'm sorry, I don't feel like he did a very good job. But it's the answers we're getting. Every time I ask him to do something, it's, what do you want me to do? It's like, I just want to know what happened to my son.
Or at least a little help.
And the few things that were available were blown off.
So you can see the direction of the conversation is going down the path of Sandra and Keith just really wanting some accountability taken, someone to take accountability. They want to know what avenues are possible to take and what can potentially be done even months after to reveal new information that might hold some answers. And Sandra knows that in this crucial time period where Tyler was alone and we don't know what he was doing or what was happening to him, he had his phone the whole time. He was texting and Snapchatting, and she wants to know if there's any way to pull location data from that. And Sergeant Van Aker's response is no, because he doesn't have a magic wand.
I can tell you.
Well, I know that their stories do, but there's the
I
pictures.
can tell you that in the history of everything we've ever written to Snapchat, we've got nothing back.
Mm-hmm. But they can go back and look at the location of when something was sent.
If you can find that out and find out how you can do that, I'd be more than happy to take any.
Well, I'm not a tech person.
Well, ma'am, I'm just telling you. People think that we have some magic wand that I can go back and tell you where he was every second of every minute because he had Snapchat or because he had this app on his phone or he was on Facebook. Or I can't do that.
It's just odd because his locations were on his phone and that whole day was deleted out of his phone. The whole day is missing. Didn't show him in Galesburg at all. And his locations are on his phone. It's on. All these things are suspicious to me, and I keep hearing, well, we don't have a crime. Well, we're not going to ever find a crime if we don't investigate, is my point. How are you going to find a crime if you don't investigate it? You can't just blow it off as an accident. It's not termed as an accident until you have to investigate it. You're never going to find a crime if you don't go out.
Ma'am, minus somebody coming forward and saying something.
I know, the coroner already said to me, ma'am, if something happened to your son, this is what he said to me. If something did happen to your son, the only one two people are going to know is God and the one that did it. Believe me, I've been talked to like this the whole time.
But I'm trying to just be realistic with you in reference to our investigation. I'm trying to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say, yeah, I can do search warrants on Snapchat and I can do search warrants on Facebook and I can do search warrants again to Apple. And the end result is always going to be the same. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to get anything that's going to tell me what happened to your son. I have no idea. Nobody in this room has any idea how your son ended up in Cedar Fork. No one. And we can assume and we can guess. Because you want to say he was walking down in Cedar Fork. I can argue the fact that he wasn't walking in Cedar Fork. Mm-hmm. You can say he was put down there. I can argue the fact that he was not put down there. Your son was 230 pounds.
He wasn't. He was 209.
Okay, 209 pounds. You know what it takes to lift a 209-pound dead weight and put him down somewhere?
First of all, if you're military trained, you can do it by yourself.
And get him down into Cedar Fork. So you're telling me one of his buddies carried him down there and put him in the water?
I don't know what happened to
I don't
Tyler.
either.
But it's possible, just as much as you say that.
But the only way I'm going to be able to prove that is if one of them buddies wants to tell me that.
Right.
I have no Snapchat and Facebook and nothing else is going to tell me that. Nothing is going to tell me that. Because I have no way to determine how he got down in Cedar Fork. Well, even if I'd have caught him on camera in front of Mike Martins, doesn't put him in Cedar Fork.
I know, but it at least got me a block from where he was at.
Okay, it gets you a block from where he's at. What's
gives me more.
My investigation.
It gives you a timeline.
This is very frustrating to me because Detective or Sergeant Van Aker is saying like, oh, your son was 230 pounds. First of all, no, he wasn't. He's 209 pounds, says in his autopsy report. Seriously, dude, like, do your homework. Second of all, he's like, oh, do you know how hard it is to carry 209 pounds dead weight? Yes, it is hard, right? We can all like acknowledge that. But what Sergeant Van Aker, I think, is failing to acknowledge here, maybe intentionally, is that Tyler didn't have to be carried down there, right? Because that concrete drainage area is at a lower level, and there's like an area above with a gate to stop people from falling in, that maybe a fight could have happened there, or he could have been brought to that location and then bloop, thrown over, right? Or even standing there, could have been punched, knocked unconscious, and then bloop, pushed over. That would have been way easier to do than to carry him down in there. That seems far more likely. Okay? Now, a few times during this meeting, Sandra voiced her desire to have the Illinois State Police involved to take over the investigation, get a fresh set of eyes on Tyler's case. She says she's already reached out to them herself, but they told her the request would need to come from the Galesville Police Department. Van Aker says, no problem. He'll reach out to them.
Can we ask to have the state police come in and look at it?
Sure.
Without it being a biased, like, well, we don't want you guys to come in here really and do this, but can you come out? But you will not do that, right?
No.
You know, I don't want you calling and going, don't waste your time.
No, here's the deal. We would turn that over. We would contact, they would contact District 7.
Because I've already talked to District 7. They said we can't come in until you guys call.
And if all we got to do is just tell them, hey, we want you to come in. I'll turn all the case file, everything over, everything that we have, they can have. They'll have everything. I'm not hiding behind anything. Here's what I can tell you. Am I upset about how this all turned out? Yes. Could have I done better? Yes. Could have my detectives maybe done better? Not so much in reference to the investigative side of what we have, because we had to still base our facts off of what we received on the death report. Okay? But should have you been treated differently? Yes. There's no doubt. That's a learning curve on our end, and we talked about this. We've talked about it every single day that we have a meeting back there. This is how we need to proceed. This is how we need to go forward. Frustration happens to all kinds of people. I've been doing this job for 28 years. I've seen a lot of things. I've investigated a lot of crimes. I've solved homicides.
Now, listen, I actually appreciate Van Aker taking accountability and admitting that he and the rest of the police department could have and should have done things differently, especially in regards to how Tyler's parents were treated and how the level of communication was not great or respectful. He's having a hard time taking responsibility for the investigation not being done properly. But Sandra continues to push for answers. She's not backing down, because even though I, as someone not personally connected, can appreciate the accountability, it probably felt too little too late for Tyler's parents. She mentions that Tyler had butt dialed his friend in Macomb accidentally, and this friend, which was Daniel, hearing the sound of two voices at around 11:40 p.m., and then Tyler stopped moving at 11:52 p.m. She and Keith bring up the conflicting timelines and stories that the police received from Evan and Robbie, such as Robbie saying that when he got in the car, it was 11:35 p.m., but Evan had said he arrived home at 11:40 p.m., which was not possible if he had walked, which he says he did.
I don't understand. How is Evan getting home in 5 minutes walking?
I don't know.
But
I don't know if that's the correct time. You're asking me to go off of things that people are stating. I don't know. Was it 11:35 or 11:25? I don't know. I'm going off of his statement. I'm going off of the fact that his girlfriend comes home and he's in bed at 12:15.
Right. And Evan's home but doesn't call his mom to get in the house at 12:06.
Okay.
So they both had time to be with Tyler at 11:52.
But he's texting his girlfriend prior to that. So I don't know. I really can't. You're asking me to split hairs in reference to a timeline that I don't think it.
So it
comes around.
So
I question it. Yeah. Why didn't I know? I question the fact is, why is Tyler calling Oni?
Something happened.
No, but he didn't say anything to Oni when something happened. He's calling Oni but why? Because
he needed a place to stay.
He thought he was in where? He thought he was where?
In Macomb.
Exactly.
By the police station.
Exactly. So I'm going off of those kind of things too. Why is he calling Oni? He just spent the whole evening with Evan and Robbie. Why didn't he call Evan's phone? Why didn't he call Robbie's phone? Why is he calling Oni? Why is he?
Yeah. So something happened in between the two of them. Then maybe no.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But who's going to tell me that something happened between the two of them? Unless they come forward and tell me that something happened between the three of them and that's what happened, that takes place, I got nothing to go off of.
Sandra's breaking down the holes in the timeline, and all Van Aker can say is he just doesn't know. And it's like he's annoyed that he's being asked to speculate about these holes when, in fact, once again, that is his job, to speculate about why different accounts don't match up with, different established timelines. Sandra and Van Aker do a little verbal sparring. He says he's asked himself the same questions as she's asking, and Sandra directly asks Van Aker, what does he think happened? How does he think Tyler got down into that concrete drainage? How does he think Tyler got down into that concrete drainage ditch?
Why is he facing north into the water if the walking path is east and west?
Because I don't think he was walking down there. I can tell you.
So what do you think happened? He fell over the railing?
I can make the assumption just from what I'm looking at and from what I'm seeing, everything here. My best assumption is he came up to that railing. He had no idea what was on the other side of that railing.
So you mean
he jumped? He either jumped the railing and went down. I don't know.
he would have way more injuries than 20 feet up?
Nope.
I want to cut in here because there is more audio to play that connects to this, but at this point, they're moving to a different room to continue the conversation, so that's why the audio sounds a bit different for a minute, and Van Aker is going to talk about his potential theory that Tyler jumped into the drainage ditch, even though Sandra and Keith were told by police initially that there was no way this had happened. Otherwise, Tyler's injuries would have been more severe.
I agree that the fact that you were told that there's no way he could have fell from that height.
Because his injuries, they said, they could have.
And as my explanation for that is when we think of somebody falling from that height, we think of somebody going head over, falling down, not jumping and landing feet first. There's a difference.
His feet were so close to the wall, there's no way that he landed really close.
I don't know.
His feet were this close to the wall.
I understand that.
But then they said that his clothes wasn't pull all and, you know.
Yeah, his shirt and stuff were tucked in, and his shirts weren't tucked in. His jeans were down. There's drag marks from his hand into the water.
From his hand into the water.
Yeah, I have it on my phone if you'd like to see it.
It's okay. I'll look at it later.
Okay. If you look at his hand, there's a picture of his hand, and you can see that there's a mark. They took a picture of his hand, and I don't know if they're taking a picture of the rock, but you can actually see where his hand had dragged through.
I think that.
It can happen in the process of.
He could have rolled down in there. Well, there is one place there. I mean, to get down in there.
On that note, I do want to talk about what could have potentially happened to Tyler, because it doesn't seem that the Galesburg Police Department have reached a consensus about that, right? They have their theories, but they don't really know exactly how he died, how he got in the position he got in, and how his injuries correspond to that. Responding police officers told Tyler's parents he couldn't have fallen from above because his injuries weren't extensive enough. Sandra is telling Sergeant Van Aker that it seems like there's evidence that Tyler was dragged, and because of how far away from the wall his feet were, it doesn't look like he fell in. It looks like he was placed there, which is funny because earlier Van Aker was like, oh, like, you think somebody could have carried him down into there? And now he's like, well, he could have fallen from above. You know, so like, what do you think, dude? What's your stance on this? It doesn't make any sense. That being said, an accident reconstruction was performed by Closing Velocity Incorporated in September of 2019. Reconstructionist Michael Kausert submitted a report with his findings, and he lays out the circumstances of Tyler's disappearance and how Tyler was found, saying, quote, Tyler's body was found face down, almost perfectly perpendicular to the south wall of a canal, which extends in a northeast and southwest direction. The water was approximately 2 to 3 inches deep at the time his body was found and reportedly does not exceed this depth, meaning that, you know, no matter what the rainfall is, etc., that's usually the depth of the water in that drainage ditch. It's 2 to 3 inches. The report goes on to say that Tyler was wearing white shoes, which appeared clean without evidence of walking or being dragged in dirt or mud. His feet were oriented very close to the south wall, which is approximately 12 to 14 feet tall. On top of the wall was a railing. Just south of the railing was a rock-based surface which extended on a relatively steep angle upward toward railroad tracks. There were multiple tracks which ran parallel and south of the canal. South of the railroad tracks were private residences and a fence, which at the time of this incident had an opening where pedestrians could enter the area of the railroad tracks from North Academy Street. North Academy Street ends at a dead end at its intersection with the railroad. According to a video at Casey's gas station located at the corner of Academy Street and Main Street, Tyler was last seen walking northbound on Academy Street approaching the railroad tracks, end quote. Now, Mike Kosert points out that Tyler officially died of drowning, but there were numerous superficial injuries on his body, including bruises, abrasions, and scratches. Mike also noted that there was access to the canal by motor vehicle a few blocks to the northeast of where Tyler was found. This is the access point we discussed in the last video. When the police first arrived on the scene, they tried to get down into the drainage ditch using this location, but the gate was locked. Now, this gate was maintained by the town of Galesburg, and all city employees are supposed to have a key that unlocks it. city employees, including police officers. Mike Cowsert writes, quote, "At the time Tyler was found, no one from the Galesburg Police Department had a key to unlock the gate, which leads to questions if the lock was cut and replaced by another lock by a non-Galesburg city employee who accessed the gate," end quote. So basically saying, like, was Tyler driven down into that location? He didn't have to be carried. His dead weight didn't have to be carried. Was he beat up somewhere or hit by a car? And then somebody put him in the car, drove him down to that location by cutting the lock on the access gate, and then they replaced the lock with a different lock, which is why the Galesburg police could not open it when they arrived at the location of where Tyler's body was found. Now, Mike Cosart actually went to the location where Tyler was found, surveyed the wall, the railing, the nearby railroad, the access point to the tracks, and the canal and its vehicular access point. The report states the following, quote, "The question raised to my attention related to my expertise in physics and my experience as a 23-year veteran as a detective with the police department. The first question asked was if Tyler's final rest in the canal was possible from a fall from the railing on top of the South Canal wall. My opinion is yes, it would be possible. However, based on the position Tyler was oriented at his rest, it would make more physical sense that he was lifted and his legs were pushed forward, creating a rapid rotation to land in the position in which he was oriented. Also, if this effort occurred, it is my opinion Tyler was not conscious at the time he traveled over the railing, as his final rest wasn't indicative of any defensive act to prevent his fall. Tyler's final rest position appeared as a result of a defenseless position prior to his final rest. The second question raised to my attention related to the possibility Tyler was killed, placed in a vehicle, and driven into the canal prior to being carefully placed in his rest position. This question was raised considering the lack of dirt or mud on Tyler's shoes and the perfect perpendicular position in which he was oriented at rest. My opinion is this was also possible, however less likely, as it would take more planning and preparation to move Tyler into a vehicle, travel to an area of the canal entrance, which is more populated, and then drive him to the specific area of rest. I do feel the lack of frontal leg, face, and torso trauma relating to a fall, the positioning of his body, and the cleanliness of his shoes do support this theory. However, the extensive risk the offenders would take to complete this act would be extreme. It is my opinion Tyler was involved in a physical altercation prior to his death. I base this opinion on the injuries he sustained, which are not indicative from a fall, but instead a physical altercation between others. I found the watch removed from his wrist as unusual, as a watch will not be undone the way it was found next to Tyler's body. I believe this watch was removed from Tyler's wrist either during the altercation or just before he was placed or thrown to his rest spot. I disagree with the Galesburg Police Department, which states there's no evidence to support Tyler's death was a result of a criminal act. I feel this case needs to be further investigated to conclude on what occurred, which led to Tyler's death, end quote. So he's basically saying, like, yeah, I guess he could have fallen, but listen, the way his body was positioned makes it seem more like he was placed there. Also, because his shoes were not muddy, they weren't wet, they were in pretty good condition. It doesn't look as if he crawled into that drainage ditch or got in there and walked into that drainage ditch himself, because the location of which he was found in that drainage ditch, there was no access point. He would have had to have accessed it from a different place if he didn't jump or fall in, and then he would have had to have walked to the place where his body was found, which would have caused some wetness, dirt, mud, things like that on his shoes. Michael Cosart goes on to also disagree with the lack of detail performed by the ME's office in the autopsy. There were no conclusions about Tyler's multiple injuries or how he could have sustained them. Cosart said there was no x-rays to determine whether Tyler had any broken bones, and there were incorrect descriptions given to include the way that Tyler's head was positioned at rest. Cosart said, quote, "The ME's description was contrary to the evidence based on photographs taken by the police department," end quote. Cosart claims that the autopsy report was very vague and didn't capture all the related items of evidence necessary to consider when determining a cause of death. And this is from somebody who worked as a police officer for 23 years. Somebody that Tyler's family had never met. They didn't know him. They weren't able to talk to him and give him all their opinions and make him biased. This is somebody who does this for a living, accident reconstructions. Now, in October of 2019, the family of Tyler Smith held a press conference to announce they were seeking a second investigation and another autopsy. At that time, they had started working with private investigator Mitchell Drake.
The parents of Tyler Smith held a news conference near the canal where their 23-year-old son was found dead in 2018 in Galesburg, Illinois. After an investigation by the Galesburg Police Department, his death was ruled an accidental drowning. However, the family believes that's not the case. They are asking for justice and requesting a second autopsy, x-rays, and for the Illinois State Police to take over this investigation.
I know my son, and from the minute I received that phone call that he was missing, I knew something was very wrong.
More than a year later, Smith parents say they are asking for answers as they requested for an expert opinion from a retired law enforcement officer.
Conclusion number 1. The crime scene analysis by the Galesburg Police Department did not follow established certified training guidelines and their own police protocol.
As the retired officer read his findings, based on 30-plus years of experience in law enforcement, Smith parents were overwhelmed with emotion.
There were no notes taken of the crime scene. In addition, there was no sample taken of the water, soil, or moss at the scene. G. No points of reference were noted, and no diagrams or sketches were completed.
Smith parents say they simply want justice for their son.
No matter what the outcome is, he deserves a non-biased investigation. We need a set of fresh eyes to get the truth on what happened to our son that awful night.
Now, you heard Drake in that clip say conclusion 1, right? Conclusion 1 was that the crime scene analysis by the police did not follow established certified training guidelines and their own police protocol. The supporting points he lists for conclusion 1 are as follows. No crime scene techs were contacted or reported to the scene. No CSI stuff was done. No measurements were taken from any points of reference for adequate placement of articles of interest and possible evidence, or even the placement of Tyler's body. Non-police personnel were advised to minorly reposition Tyler's body by responding officers, and those persons removed articles from the victim's pockets and put them on the ground prior to any photographs being taken or any measurements being taken, which we know measurements weren't taken anyways. There was no canvas of the area for potential witnesses at the time of the discovery of the body. No attempt was made to contact businesses or residences to obtain any possible video at the time. No crime scene log was taken of personnel, police, EMS, or civilians that had contact with the body or entered the crime scene area. There were no notes taken of the crime scene, and no samples taken of water or soil or moss at the scene. Although Tyler's hands were bagged, there was no exam of his hands done for DNA or scrapings taken from underneath his fingernails. Photos indicate a spot on Tyler's shoes that appeared to be blood, but his clothes and shoes were not entered into evidence and were left with the body, which was taken to Peoria for an autopsy, then sent to the funeral home, at which point the clothes and the shoes were destroyed. There was no request made to retain the clothes by the pathologist, and no police officer was present to collect the clothes from the pathologist or the funeral home. Now, certain articles photographed at the scene, which may have influenced the police department's opinion of an accidental drowning, such as a beer can and other items, were initially entered into evidence and then thrown away just a few days later without any forensics exam or DNA done on them. Mitchell Drake notes that in open investigations, it is strict protocol to retain all items of possible evidence while the investigation is open. Tyler's cell phone was in working order. That was returned to his family within days with only the smallest checks of texts and no forensics on the phone being completed. And finally, to support conclusion 1, no police personnel attended the autopsy or provided first-person information as to the positioning, location, and condition of the body when it was found. They didn't provide the stuff to the ME. Usually police officers will be, or at least one police officer will be present for an autopsy if they believe that foul play may have happened. Now, Mitchell Drake had 3 other conclusions, though. He didn't talk about them during the press conference, at least not the clip that we have from the news, but I do have a report that he wrote, and I'm going to talk about his other conclusions, and I'm going to go a little out of order to try and stay topical. Try to have this I guess, stream and like work a little bit more based on what we're talking about. Conclusion number 4 was that the autopsy conducted was routine, with no in-depth examination of visible wounds that would be consistent with a battery victim. Mitchell Drake mentions that the pathology report does not document several markings and wounds to Tyler's body, that there were no x-rays done, and, quote, the pathologist concluded there were no broken bones, although she states the body was in a state of rigor mortis at the time of this examination. This type of inspection would typically not identify fractures, tendon, or ligament damage. There's no indication that there were slides taken of the brain tissue to determine if there was a subdural injury to the brain, end quote. And Drake is saying obvious things here. When a dead body is in a state of rigor mortis, the muscles are stiff, which can make the body appear rigid, even if there are underlying fractures. If a fracture is not displaced, meaning the bones are still aligned, the stiffness from rigor mortis might obscure movement or deformation that would typically suggest a break. Additionally, after death, post-mortem swelling may affect tissues around the bones, and this can also make fractures harder to visually identify, especially in areas where small bones are covered by thick muscles, such as the legs and arms. Hairline fractures or non-displaced fractures may not cause an obvious change in the bone structure visible to the naked eye, and if no x-rays or CT scans are done, these subtle fractures may go undetected. And when Drake refers to slides of brain tissues not being taken, so there was no way to identify a subdural injury to the brain, he's talking about the subdural space of the brain, which is located between the outer protective layer, that's called the dura mater, and then the arachnoid mater, which is the thinner layer that covers the brain. Drake also talks about how there were wounds on both sides of Tyler's face and head. There was marks around his neck, wrist, and these marks around his wrist actually look like handcuffs. There was also marks on the back of his hand and on his back that were not explained or talked about in the pathology report. Mitchell Drake said, quote, the victim's watch was found right next to the body with the watch band pin bent and disconnected from the watch. None of these would be consistent with a simple fall from standing height, end quote. Now we have conclusion number 2, which is a member or members of the Galesburg Police Department were misleading to the family on what investigative inquiries had been completed. Drake says, quote, the family filed a formal complaint against the police department that alleged a detective advised the family that there was no video available from a specific business in the area of the crime scene. He specifically stated that he checked with the owner of the business. When the family checked with the owner, they were advised the detective had not contacted him, and there was in fact video available at the time of the incident, but by the time the family found this out, the video had been recorded over. The police department then collected the recorder after the family filed the complaint and set it off for analysis in an attempt to recover deleted video. This proved to be unsuccessful. In the complaint, the family alleged that they were advised by the police that they had checked the video of Casey's convenience store, which is located about 2.5 blocks away from the crime scene, and Tyler was not on the video. The family subsequently checked and obtained video from Casey's that shows Tyler walking along the street. In addition, my own observations reveal that Tyler was walking in a purposeful gait, not stumbling, and appeared to be looking at his phone. In reviewing the video, it does not appear that Tyler is intoxicated to the point of passing out or his balance was significantly impaired. Tyler was not carrying anything in his hands other than his cell phone. This video is estimated to be a few minutes prior to his death by comparing it with cell phone health app on Tyler's phone, which calculates steps and movement. So according to Mitchell Drake, the Galesburg Police Department did drop the ball. But what is their response to that?
The captain of the police department denies that, saying that they've done everything that they can do.
We've given them every bit of information they've ever asked for. The family has reached out to us many times. We've given them thousands of documents. Everything they've ever asked for, we've given them.
Tyler Smith parents want Galesburg police to hand this case over to Illinois State Police.
We've spoken to the state police quite a while ago about this case. If she wants to reach out to them, that's certainly what she can do.
Are you guys open-minded to calling Illinois State Police and having them come down and take over the case?
If she would like to call the state police, like I said, that's something that she can do, she's free to do that.
Now, as you just saw there, the police captain here in Galesburg continued to say that Tyler Smith parents could simply reach out to Illinois State Police and ask them to come down and take over this death investigation. However, according to an official with the Illinois State Police, that is not protocol and simply untrue. He said that it's the Galesburg Police Department that must reach out to the state's attorney and ask the state's attorney to reach out to the Illinois State Police on their behalf to say, hey, come down here and take over this death investigation. Reporting in Galesburg, Illinois, Josh Vinson, Local 4 News.
So apparently this police department doesn't understand protocol on any level. And I have to wonder, do they think they can just say whatever they want? Not just to Tyler's parents, but on a public platform, and no one is going to do their own research, find out they aren't being completely honest, and call them out on it? But wait, there's more.
The parents say that you all said that you all dropped the ball and that their son was a learning experience. Is that how you feel?
No, I don't. I don't know what drop the ball means exactly. I assume that's an improper or incomplete investigation.
You would call it a learning experience. I don't like that term. Someone losing a child is not someone's learning experience. I don't like that term. I don't know where that came from. So I don't like that term. I think that's, again, is not respectful to what they're going through.
The staff time that we have available for a case like that, it certainly isn't as much staff time as we would have for a clearly homicidal case.
They're just wanting answers.
I understand.
And they just want it as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
But they're having to do all the investigating.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. I'm sure any of us in a similar circumstance would want answers as well.
Sometimes in life, we never have all the answers. Especially in law enforcement, we don't have a magic pill. Sometimes there's things that we just don't know and may never know. And unfortunately, I think that may be the reality in this case.
Because they're not hating on the police. I mean, he wanted to be a police officer. They just want to get to the bottom of what happened.
Sometimes we can't find answers to things. That's just the reality of life. We'll do everything we can. I will do everything I can. But we weren't there, and if no one was there, some things we don't know. There's no indication at all of any criminal element in this case at all. So I highly suspect the state police would not have any interest in this case.
I would think that would be something you all would just be willing to do if there's nothing that you've done wrong.
Right. Well, we've already the family hired a private investigator who came in and was here for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we opened our doors and our books and everything that we have. The presentation of even the idea that somehow one of our officers was involved in this and somehow one of our tasers was used is ridiculous, preposterous, and insulting.
There will be concerns thrown out there that there is possible discrimination in this case. How do you respond to that?
At no time anywhere during the investigation did anyone's demographic or what they look like or sound like or shaped like even enter into anyone's thought process.
Sometimes these things take years, but I'm in it for the long haul.
And as Smith's family continue to fight for justice since Tyler's death, they've made an effort to turn the tragic situation into ways to remember him and do what Tyler was known for, and that's giving back and helping others. So they have a memorial fund set up that will be used for charitable causes. The family has already gave away 2 scholarships at Tyler's high school and hope to give more. And just a few weeks ago, the family hosted a 5K run and walk in his name. And the family plans to keep continuing to celebrate Tyler's life through different grants, scholarships, and events. And we have all of this information on our website from our series online right now at news3wiu.com.
Well, we do know where the whole "this was a learning experience" statement came from. It came from within your own ranks, right? It came from Sassy Pants Sergeant Van Aker, which is interesting because I wonder if this was just sort of the party line that the police department was told to sort of take if they were interviewed by the media or if they talked to anybody associated with the case. Like, oh, just tell them, like, yeah, we made some mistakes or, we didn't get everything, but this was a learning experience. Like, that's the narrative we're going with here. I also want to point out that at the time that Tyler's family and the private investigator, Mitchell Drake, spoke at their press conference, October 2019, the Galesburg police captain, Rod Riggs, said that they had previously contacted the Illinois State Police about Tyler's case, as you heard in that clip. In Mitchell Drake's report, when he's discussing conclusion 2, that a member or members of the Galesburg Police Department was misleading to the family on what investigative work had been completed, he says, quote, "The family requested that the police department was asked to request the Illinois State Police to come in and follow up or take over this case. The police department advised that they would make the request. The family again checked with the Galesburg police and they were advised that the state police were contacted and they refused to come in. When the family checked with the state police in Moline, the district assigned to Galesburg, they learned that no request was made to them to assist or take over the investigation." So why would you say you were going to talk to the state police and ask them to come in because the parents were requesting that, and then you said, oh, we did, but you didn't? Why would you do that? Is this, once again, is this incompetence? Is this laziness? Are you trying to cover something up? Are you just trying to cover your own asses because you don't want the state police to come in and basically figure out how badly you handled this investigation? What's the deal here? All right. So we have a few other things to talk about to sort of tie things up, but I want to discuss the second autopsy done on Tyler Smith's body before we do that. This autopsy was performed on July 15th, 2020, almost 2 years after Tyler's death, following his exhumation. His body was well preserved due to embalming, and previous autopsy incisions were noted. The pathologist found evidence of severe head, face, and neck trauma, and some of the injuries were consistent with a high fall, but some injuries were unexplained by a fall alone. Tyler had suffered from a fractured nasal septum, along with multiple contusions and abrasions on his face, chin, and head. The right side of his face showed a deep hemorrhaging, suggesting a forceful impact, and subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is bleeding on the brain, indicating blunt force trauma. There were also additional unexplained injuries, such as deep hemorrhages to Tyler's tongue, suggesting his chin hit the pavement while his tongue was between his teeth. There were also right shoulder, upper arm, and back contusions present, along with knee abrasions and ligament stretching in the right ankle, and a possible non-displaced fracture of the right mandible, which is the jawbone. The deep bruising and injuries on Tyler's elbow and back would raise questions about whether he was in a struggle at some point before his death. Now, I unfortunately, today at least, cannot reveal everything this second autopsy concluded, because the case is currently in the hands of the Illinois State Police, and it is considered an open and active investigation, so this information has not yet been made public. But what I can say is that this pathologist did not rule Tyler's cause of death as a drowning. The reason given for cause of death is the detail I can't talk about, but it seems like this pathologist is saying, based on Tyler's injuries, that can't be revealed, his ability to breathe in water and drown would not have been possible. He was dead by the time his face was in that water. He did not drown. That is what the second autopsy actually determined, which is crazy. This is crazy. And this second autopsy was actually performed under the authority of the Knox coroner, Mark Thomas. So Mark Thomas is somebody who was present, I believe, for the first autopsy as well. He kind of supervised this. He was there. So it's not like they just, brought in a bunch of other people without any of the initial people who first did the autopsy to conduct the second autopsy and come up with their own conclusions. They just did an actual thorough autopsy this time around. They took longer than 30 minutes. So let's tie up some loose ends here. First, I want to focus on the surveillance footage of Tyler from the Casey's convenience store. Remember that there was a Galesburg Police Department vehicle that pulled into the parking lot of Casey's shortly after Tyler walked by, and this car turned down the exact street that Tyler did just about 2 minutes after him. Obviously, Tyler's parents wanted to know who this police officer was for a few different reasons. This cop could have seen Tyler walking because he wouldn't have gotten far at that point. He's on foot, the cop's in the car. Or the cop could have dash cam footage that showed Tyler, and they would have given a better indication of his condition, whether he was alone, etc. Now, in the Galesburg Police Department report, it breaks down what was seen on the Casey's surveillance video, and it mentioned that at 11:50 p.m., a squad car enters the parking lot and then heads northbound on Northwest Street, the same direction as Tyler Smith was walking. The report says, quote, "I can't see what number is on the squad car to find out which officer was in the unit. I have checked with dispatch and doesn't show any business checks at Casey's General Store. We can't recall radio traffic unless we know the zone car and unit number," end quote. Now let's turn to Tyler's mother's notes that she put together while dealing with this police department and their investigation. She says, quote, "We were told there was no way to find out who that officer was if we could not see what the number on the car was. I started to FOIA information as far as who was working that night, what zones they work in, dispatch, MDT logs, CAD, etc. Even in the police report, Detective Ming states there were no business checks conducted during the time Tyler was walking past Casey's. In May of 2019, we were told that it was Officer Bucolo, and she'd called in a business check. They said it was just a mistake and that they'd missed it." End quote. Man, there's a lot of mistakes and missed things in this investigation. It's almost suspicious. Additionally, on the surveillance footage, another vehicle is spotted leaving Casey's and driving away in the same direction as Tyler, just 1 minute after Tyler walks down the road, and 1 minute before the police car, who we now know carried Officer Bucolo, goes in the same direction. This person is identified in the police report, but to protect his privacy at this time, I'm only going to identify him by the letters JT. So Sandra Halsney found out who this person was as well. She did some investigating and also found out that he worked at the Cherry Street Bar and Grill, and he was known to drive drunk. Sandra reached out to JT's manager on Facebook Messenger to see if JT had worked that night, and the manager said yes, JT had been there until at least 1 a.m. Sandra then spoke to JT herself, who also said he'd been at work and he'd taken a cab home that night around or after 2 a.m. Sandra then asked Detective Mings of the Galesburg Police Department to call JT in for an interview, and during this interview, she claims that JT told the detective a completely different story, and then Tyler's parents were told that a mistake had been made and JT actually wasn't working at Cherry Street that night. So I'm going to read from the police report, and it says that this police officer, Detective Mings, contacted Cherry Street Bar owner, who I'm not going to give his name either, but we'll call him TP, and advised TP to please have JT get a hold of me so I can interview him about being on the Casey's surveillance video. TP advised Detective Mings that Sandra, Tyler's mother, had contacted him as well, and he'd made a mistake. Right? TP had made a mistake when he talked to Sandra and told her that JT had been working in the DJ booth that night on 9/14/2018. TP said that JT had not worked the DJ booth that night. He'd only worked in the kitchen. And then JT called Detective Mings back shortly after Detective Mings spoke to his boss and scheduled an interview with Detective Mings. So on December 27th, 2018, at approximately 17:59 hours, Detective Mings talked to JT at the Public Safety Building. When JT first arrived, Detective Mings advised him why he wanted to interview him, and JT advised that Sandra had been in contact with him by Facebook Messenger and was asking him questions about her son and cab companies, because Sandra had asked JT, like, oh, you took a cab home. Well, what cab company did you use? So JT's telling Detective Mings, yeah, I already talked to Sandra. She asked me about her son. She asked me about different cab companies, and JT showed Detective Mings the messages. JT advised that he wanted to make sure that he knew that his real legal name was blank and not blank. So apparently he goes by like an alias. So Detective Mings showed JT the surveillance video to refresh his memory, and it showed him coming and going from Casey's. He also showed him on the video where Tyler Smith was walking, and JT advised that he worked at Cherry Street Bar that night in the kitchen and didn't do the DJ booth. JT advised Detective Mings that he did drive that night and he was the person in the video at Casey's. So JT saying, no, I didn't take a cab. I did drive that night. That is me actually on that surveillance footage. JT told Detective Mings that he was coming from Taco Bell on North Henderson Street to Casey's on East Main Street to get sour cream for the tacos because they didn't have any. I guess Taco Bell didn't have any sour cream that night. JT stated that when he left on North Academy Street and went the same way as Tyler Smith, he didn't see anyone walking on the road. JT stated he went onto Academy Street, took a right on West Ferris Street, then took a left on North Broad Street, then a left on West North Street to get to his girlfriend's house, which is at 43 West North Street. I asked JT why he came back to Casey's because on the surveillance footage, it shows JT leaving, going the same direction as Tyler, and then returning to Casey's not long after. And JT stated he came back because he thought he got sour cream, but it wasn't sour cream, so he returned it to Casey's. JT stated that when he came back, he would have went from West North Street to Academy Street, made a left turn, then up to West Main to make a left turn, then to Casey's. JT stated he never saw anyone walking on the street and didn't hit anyone on the street. JT did show me on his phone on Facebook Messenger from September 14th, 2018, where his girlfriend sent him a message, no sour cream, frowny face. JT stated he never took any cabs that night. The police report also goes on to state that they have interior footage from Casey's, like inside cameras. There's no timestamp, but it does show JT entering the store and going straight to the cashier counter. This is when he returns to Casey's. The cashier and JT engage in conversation. The cashier selects some tobacco products from the back wall. JT engages in a conversation again with the cashier. The cashier then calls over another Casey's employee. That woman starts talking to JT. After the conversation, the other employee goes over to the condiment and puts some items from the condiment items in a plastic bags and gives them to JT. JT pays for what it appears to be tobacco products and takes the plastic bag as well, which the Casey's employee provided him. Then we see that JT leaves Casey's, he gets in his car, he drives away going in the same direction as Tyler Smith. And then about 9 minutes later, JT goes back to Casey's, goes straight to the cashier counter again, engages in a conversation with the first cashier again. And then the second employee who had given him the plastic sack of items from the condiment counter comes out of the kitchen, meets with JT. This employee and JT talk a little bit at the cashier counter. Then JT returns the plastic sack to the second employee. And then the second employee receives the plastic sack containing items, sits it on the condiment counter. Then we have about 1.5 minutes later, JT exits to the parking lot. JT states he went to Casey's for sour cream, returned later, and returned the items he was given because it wasn't sour cream. JT did appear to purchase tobacco products as well. Detective Mings says that he tried to get the receipt from Casey's, but they told him he couldn't get it because they couldn't go back that far because he's there in January. This happened in September. And he says at this point there's no evidence or anything which would indicate that JT has any involvement with the death of Tyler Smith. Now, what's interesting is we don't hear about JT going back in to Casey's and buying sour cream that he said he was there to buy, right? And I'm not saying that this JT guy is guilty of anything or did anything, but what I'm saying is there's all these loose ends that haven't been tied up. And that's exactly what Tyler's parents are saying as well. Basically, at the end of the day, it seems like if a thorough and actual investigation had been done in those crucial first days, the police might actually have some leads that could have given them insight into what happened to Tyler. For instance, this receipt from Casey's is a small little example of it, but if they'd been looking for surveillance, if they'd figured out that Tyler had been walking through Casey's parking lot, they could have gotten that receipt. And if JT didn't buy sour cream, they could have been like, hey, why'd you say you bought sour cream when you didn't? You know, these little things that could have actually given them some answers about how Tyler ended up in that drainage ditch, how he even got there that quickly, if we're to believe the timeline of Robbie, and how Tyler went from walking pretty evenly and measured in that Casey surveillance video to being so drunk that he somehow passed out in 2 inches of water and drowned, right? Because that's not what happened. From the second autopsy, we can see that Tyler's cause of death was not drowning. Something happened to him before he ended up in that water. That's something that actually ended his life. And I'm sure there's a possibility that Tyler got himself into this situation all on his own. But there's also a large possibility that someone helped him get there. Tyler's parents have received some tips and theories through their own investigative activities. And maybe if Sandra Halsney is willing, I would bring her on, do a live for you guys, have her go through some of these and have her answer some of your questions. Let me know if that's something you would like to see. But for now, We have so many unanswered questions, too many unanswered questions, and the real tragedy of it all is that this young man was taken from the world far too soon. Tyler Smith had worked so hard throughout his life to get on the path that would lead him to the future he desired and deserved. He'd done everything right, and his dedication was paying off. And this end for him, it doesn't make any sense. And the answers that the Galesburg Police Department have provided, they aren't good enough for Sandra or Keith. They are not good enough for me, and they shouldn't be good enough for you. Was there foul play at hand? Maybe we will never know, because the people whose job it was to figure that out had better things to do. Maybe they made a snap judgment of Tyler's situation because he was young and drunk and in a city that he didn't know, that he wasn't familiar with. But all of those same factors also make Tyler a vulnerable person, somebody that the police are supposed to protect. And at the end of the day, the job of the police department is to protect and serve. And in my opinion, they grossly failed in this situation. But let me know what you think about Tyler's case. Let me know if you want to hear more from Sandra. And if you have any information about what happened to Tyler Smith, you can contact his mother, Sandra Halsney, through Facebook. You can contact me and I'll get it to Sandra. You can also contact the Illinois State Police, and you can do this anonymously if you'd like. As always, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay safe. And I will see you very, very soon.